want to start out by thanking everybody for making the time to be here with us today to hear about our math badging micro-internship and hear student insights in particular. We have two wonderful students that are here with us today that will be sharing about their experience in the internship. And a bit of an overview of what you'll be getting before that. We'll do some brief introductions from me and my EdSystems team, so you know who you're hearing from. A little bit of an overview of the Illinois Math Badging Initiative to help contextualize the micro-internship and the math badging that we'll be speaking about today. I'll do a little bit of a deep dive into the details of the micro-internship. Then we'll get to hear from our wonderful students, and we'll have some time at the end for reflections and questions about both the structure of this micro-internship and any extra questions you have for the students while they're here. So I want to start out with introductions, and I'll go ahead and stop share so that we can see everybody's faces. But I want to start us out by having introductions from both of our students, Lois and Arav, as well as our EdSystems team, Ginger and Heather. And we're going to end with Heather, who's going to bring us into a little bit of an explanation of who we are at EdSystems and what iWin even is. So if you want to start us off, Lois and Arav.
Hello, my name is Lois Baker, and I'm a sophomore at Charleston High School. I am currently enrolled in geometry, and I learned about this internship through my geometry teacher, who brought it up as an opportunity to learn more a little bit about like CBE and math and such. And so I'm excited to be here today. Hello, everyone.
My name is Arav Shah. I'm also a sophomore at the Illinois Math and Science Academy. I'm currently in BCE 1-2, and I heard about this internship from both my principal, and also we have like a math honor society at our school, and so they kind of provided this as an opportunity. And so yeah, I thought it was really interesting, and I know we're going more into the internship later, so I'll leave it there. I'm also very excited to be here. Thank you.
Great, Donna, you want me to head in? So Ginger Reynolds, wonderful to see you all, Senior Fellow at Education Systems Center, and also the lead on the Math Badging Project, which was this micro-internship was a piece of, and it's just been really fulfilling to be able to see what all the students, and particularly the two students you have sharing today, were able to come up with and help us think through in terms of using math in a more contextualized way. So wonderful to see you all. Thanks for coming.
And hi, everyone. I'm Heather Penzak, Director of Innovation Implementation at EdSystems. And one of the key roles I play is facilitating this network, the Illinois Work-Based Learning Innovation Network, and we'll talk about that. But work-based learning is a big bucket that we have at EdSystems. And so it's always really exciting when we can actually engage students in a work-based learning experience and not just talk about them, right? But actually, practice what you preach and all of that, but really engage with young people. So I'm just really excited that Arav and Lois could be here. If you weren't here at the start, it's their last week of school. They're doing finals. So just appreciate them and appreciate their teachers for making this space for them to be here and share with you all. And so we're going to go into background on the Math Badging Project. I'm going to spend literally like 1 minute here, but if you're not familiar already with EdSystems, we really do look at shaping and strengthening education and workforce systems and really thinking about what does it mean to advance racial equity, prepare more learners as they're looking towards those lives in a global economy, productive careers, feeling value and excitement about everything that they do. And so we look at that in 3 areas here, bridges to post-secondary. So what is that transition to whatever a post-secondary plan is? College and career pathways, which is very much where this is sitting in today, thinking about what are those rich experiences, both in coursework, but also in work-based learning that's helping you better understand what it is that you like to do, what it is that you don't like to do, get information about all of those things. And really, I think in this example, kind of like learning through that work process to Arav and Lois will share reflections that they have that go even beyond just completing this micro-internship, but have changed some of the ways they're thinking about math and all of that in their lives. Data impact and leadership. So how do you look at data? How do you engage with data in a thoughtful way? And we do our work both at a statewide level. So Arav and Lois are coming from different parts of the state, but they also are very much within community networks that we are engaging with through this Math Badging Initiative. And Ginger, again, who's the lead there, will share their insights on that and kind of what the initiative is. So you can see how, we're working with communities to engage in this math badging process, but also working with agency partners and having them in these discussions as well to think about statewide implications for all of this. And then iWin is what you're at today. And so the Illinois Work-Based Learning Innovation Network, it's part of one of my roles here at EdSystems. And this is just a really, honestly, fun space, for lack of a better word, maybe a cheesy word, but a space where people really come together and share innovative models for work-based learning. Typically, we have other communities who are sharing. It's not so much even coming from EdSystems, but it's lifting up the work that you all are doing across the state. But really thinking about conversations on sustainable, more equitable, more accessible models, building connections among you all. So it's always so exciting to see new people on these and to see the different kind of interactions that are happening in the chat too, and even beyond these sessions here. But we're also trying to think like, what are those state policy changes or support systems as those are bubbling up? We have a whole policy team and things that we're thinking about and engaging again in the privileged spaces that we can be in with different agency partners and organizations who are thinking about all of that. So excited to have you all here. And I think I'm turning to Ginger now to give us a bit of a background on what is this math badging initiative before we go into our micro-internship.
Yeah, terrific. Thanks, Heather. So the Illinois Math Badging Initiative, or IMB, because at EdSystems we love our acronyms, is an alternative credentialing mechanism that's aligned to the Illinois learning standards, aligned to transitional math competencies, stackable, can translate into credit, for example, in transitional math, high school math courses, early college credit. So badging is not a new concept, but here's what we mean in this particular case about math badging. So how do they work? The idea is that students can certify learning from a broad range of sources, not just coursework, but also coursework, maybe independent study, maybe the math that happens over summer school, or maybe in a lot of these cases, a work-based learning experience. So there's math that happens in students' working lives, and how is it that we can certify and validate the learning that happens there? So why badges? The idea, what we're after, is to improve math outcomes and to advance racial equity, because math badging can have a stronger alignment to the math that's actually needed for secondary, post-secondary, and career success. So there's some quantitative literacy and statistics in there, which is something that we are understanding more and more, needs to be a part of math experiences. Students can demonstrate knowledge that isn't captured by grades. So an A in algebra does not mean the same thing as the badges that you might be able to show someone to prove and validate the math that you've learned. Opportunities to develop and reinforce math knowledge and skills, just like this experience. And again, it can validate the learning that happens outside of a classroom. And they can be customizable so that students can engage with math that's directly related to their interests. So with math badging, in this particular case with IMB, the badges are a tool. They're not really just badges. They're a tool for a school or a district to solve a problem that it already is looking to try to solve, to rework a system, to change a structure that it's already trying to change, to transform its teaching, to really focus on learning. It's not just about the badges.
I'm gonna take a screenshot of what I got right here.
If you could go forward, please. Thanks. So the Math Badging Initiative is in partnership with the XQ Institute, and XQ is an organization that is really also trying to transform teaching and learning. You can see some of their projects here throughout the country. We are privileged to be one of 3 states that's involved in this math badging pilot program, as we all figure out what the best way to implement this kind of teaching and learning in a math badging context is. And so here is, just to try to give you a little bit more context about what the math badging is about. Here's the framework. And so if you look across the top, there are 4 badges. Those 4 badges are geometry focused badges. If you look at the pink boxes, those are algebra focused badges. If you look at the blue boxes, those are data science focused badges. So the idea is the badges go from, you can see up there in the upper left-hand corner, quantitative reasoning, sort of a beginning point, and up through, but not into calculus. We know that math is a place that lots of, especially underserved students, stumble and don't end up making it over that barrier onto their next college and career step. So the idea is to try to figure out give them something different to help them validate the math that they're learning. So what's in a badge? Each badge includes content and practice expectations, just like your regular learning principles or whatever, like your regular curriculum sorts of things. And then learning principles, and I'll talk about those, and examples of rich problems and assessments. So 3 types of evidence of learning, 3 types of assessments. A portfolio of evidence. So again, a set of artifacts that students collect throughout their work on a badge that they have. And then they have these demonstrations of what they can do that they can take into other situations. I did this, check out what I did, right? Helpful for an employer in an employee situation, maybe helpful in your school to argue, you know what, I'm ready for honors math, look what I did. Lots of other use cases. Then in the middle is a concepts and skills assessment, which is more of a traditional skills assessment, and that is making sure that everybody feels comfortable that the learning has been validated. There are folks who feel like they need that. And then on the right, performance assessments, which I'm sure you're familiar with, so that a chance for students to actually do the assessment. If you could go to the next one. Okay. For more information, if you're interested in learning more about math badging, please contact Danya, and she can help you learn more about. It's a really interesting and a program with a lot of potential. So really super happy to have been a part of this program and also to have engaged with this micro-internship with these students. And so thanks so much, Danya, for doing such a great job. Interested to hear again what they have to say.
Thanks, Ginger. And as I'm getting into my part in describing more about this micro-internship, I'm realizing I never introduced myself. I got so excited to share, my wonderful colleagues and the students that I forgot to mention that my name is Dania Ibrahim. I'm an innovation manager at EdSystems. I work closely with Heather in the work-based learning work that she mentioned earlier, and closely with Ginger here in the Illinois Math Badging Initiative work as well. And I'm really excited to share this work that's happened here. One of my wonderful roles that I've gotten to take up is getting to work along Ginger and Heather in putting together this micro-internship and working with these wonderful students. And so, as Ginger was mentioning, a lot of the initiative for MB is about tying learning and validating learning outside of the classroom, finding ways to capture that outside of traditional classroom learning. Which brings us to this purpose and the goals of the micro-internship, which is to have these students identify real-world situations that involve math concepts and being able to apply the appropriate investigative methods to understand those scenarios. Essentially, each week students would gather information about how math is applied in school activities or activities simply outside the traditional math classroom, and would be looking for opportunities for that learning to be aligned to badges and to be aligned to learning outside of traditional courses. And so tying to what Ginger said, it's all about validating different kinds of learning, validating the skills that students are able to engage in outside of the classroom, validating an understanding of concepts in a different way. And through these activities, we had students develop recommendations for schools to capture math learning outside of the classroom. And so, we're always thinking about things twofold at EdSystems. Whenever we engage students, we're extremely grateful for them providing the student voice and being able to share their insights and initiatives, but we also want for them to be gaining skills and from this experience and to feel that it was useful and beneficial for them no matter what they do in the future. So some of our intern goals were for them to develop research skills, for them to be able to, identify a topic of interest and apply the proper investigative methods to better understand it, to know how to bring together information from different sources, to be able to cite those sources properly, develop strong reflection skills by being able to analyze those concepts and tie different themes together, understand the different pieces that they're putting on paper and being able to communicate them in a coherent narrative, to be able to improve upon, their essential employability skills and digital literacy, verbal literacy, and written literacy as well. So what this actually looked like every week, and there's lots of resources that will be, I can share, kind of go a little bit back and forth between these resources and this slideshow to really share what this looked like. But the internship structure, and I share this so that if you're interested in this model and want to learn more about it, beyond reaching out to us, you can also engage with these resources that we've created. But essentially, the way that this internship worked was we had 11 high school students from Charleston High School, Illinois Math and Science Academy, or you may hear it called IMSA, and Ridgewood High School. And it was a 6-week, 30-hour paid virtual micro-internship. And each week, students picked a topic to explore. They gathered information from various sources and put them in a digital journal that I would check each week. And they would synthesize insights on one slide and give a 5-minute presentation. And so to give a little bit more information about what this looked like, the kinds of topics that they'd have are things like reflect on, school activities outside of the math class, think about the technology that you use every day, research an issue, a social issue that involves math, explore a historical event. There were lots of different options, but we really wanted things to be left somewhat open to students to engage in topics as they're interested as well, essentially feeling comfortable building upon topics and skills that were mentioned, but not feeling limited. And each week, they would put those thoughts into a weekly journaling prompt, which essentially brought them to these topic ideas, asked them to gather various sources, including making time to talk to like teachers and librarians that they engage with, bringing together those various sources. And then, this optional extension that we will talk about more briefly is about tying things to classroom learning. So that's what each week looked like for these interns. And each week they would also give this presentation and engage in a conversation with their peers. And this is a little bit of what that looked like. This is actually Arav presenting at one of our sessions. They would put together one slide, and then I would prompt the group, or the students would prompt the group to ask questions, to engage in conversation. It was something that increased across the weeks as they got more comfortable with one another. They also got more comfortable, asking those questions and trying to explore further conversation about each other's topics of interest. And so that was another really lovely outcome of this, was students engaging with one another and, getting comfortable asking one another critical questions, or just, pursuing more information about the other students' interests. And there was also this aspect of career exploration. So early on in this internship, we asked the students to share what careers they're currently interested in. And the top 3 ones that were shared were computer science, engineering, and medicine. And so we brought together wonderful community members that were willing to speak about those different topics during one of our during sessions of one of our weeks. We had a linear and associates project lead and mechanical engineer, followed by a college student at Georgia Institute of Technology sharing about the math that he uses in his daily classes, and sharing a little bit more of like a relatable application of math in his classes. And then our linear and associates speaker bringing up how he uses math in his mechanical engineering projects and showing us the various projects that he uses, that he's engaging in. There was also a speaker from Accenture sharing about cybersecurity and how he utilizes math still in his daily work at Accenture. And then we also brought a medical student from UChicago to share during his rotation year how he's engaged with math in the many different rotations at UChicago, how he engaged in math with anesthesia and labor and delivery, and how math is used in just so many diverse contexts. And the students got to engage with our speakers and engage in a little bit of career exploration. And then things wrapped all together with a final project, which essentially asked students to utilize things that they learned across their 6 weeks of journaling and presenting, and to synthesize those insights using those examples, and to also extend beyond what they'd been writing about and tie things to a math badge or badges that they felt best related to their final project topics. And so some example badges that they could tie to are here on the right side. We also leave a link to explore what math badges look like that the students engaged with. And we also have an example final paper that Arav was, willing to share, but I won't do a teaser trailer of his work. We'll pass along to him soon to share a little bit more, but just want to share that all of these resources will be shared outwards. We also had the students reflect on the internship. This is not what's in the final paper, but we had them write a self-reflection on their experience. And this was really twofold. One, for us to learn about, their experience and continue to improve this program. And I'll share a few of their reflections soon, but also for them to gain, again, these essential employability practices and being able to explain what it is that they've learned, being able to explain the skills that they've gained, and to get some feedback on that as well. And so, some of the challenges that came up across this process for, some vulnerability here about some things that we ran into and some of the things that the students shared, is that spring is a really challenging time to have anything with students. Spring is already incredibly busy. There's SAT prep classes and AP testing and numerous things that everybody in the room is likely aware of, but spring is a tough time to have an internship. And so students were incredibly busy. And also the students that were nominated for this internship are wonderful students that are really engaged in their math classes and also happen to be very engaged in many other activities. And so we found early on that it was nearly impossible to find one time for everybody to meet across these 11 students. There was also a challenge that different schools had slightly different scheduling. And so what we were really hoping for was for students from different schools to get more cross-school engagement, but that didn't really work out because, most students at IMSA had one time they could meet, most students at Charleston had a time they could meet. And so we're hoping for more cross-school collaboration in the future. Additionally, assignment flexibility, we toyed back and forth about how open to make the students' assignments versus how close-ended to make them. And some students really appreciated that open-endedness. With that topic list, they were allowed to choose anything they wanted within it or anything beyond it, which just gives a lot of freedom. But some students also found it challenging to find the right balance of, explanation and to understand each other's content because it was so open and because students were presenting different content every single week. Sometimes it was a challenge for other students to understand the content that they were sharing. And so that was something that we, had to get practiced with as a team on our end to be able to ask the right questions to those students that were presenting really challenging content, and also to encourage students to ask each other questions. Sometimes the reviews that we got were, I just didn't fully understand what they were sharing. And so I didn't fully understand what kind of questions to ask them or how to, to further explore this topic. And so that was a balance that was hard to strike. And also just like explaining this larger context of math badging. We also toyed with explaining too much or too little. And, at the end decided that earlier explanations and greater context is always beneficial for interns to be able to understand where their larger work is going to. And so that was a lesson we learned as well. But overall, we had some fantastic feedback from the students. Every single student wrote in their reflection that they, gained better communication skills, that they felt like it was great that they got to practice presenting, that they thought it was good that they got to practice writing. And that was really wonderful for us to hear, that most students really appreciated those, that practice and felt like they gained something from it. Some other quotes that I think are representative of the student experience are here in front of you. Feel free to read them all, but I'll read one aloud. This one, the green, that says, "I feel my mindset has shifted from only being able to see math used in the classroom to start being able to see connections with math in the real world. I feel stronger about being able to identify scenarios that use math and solve those scenarios." So this was a really wonderful outcome to hear, that students were starting to see math in the world beyond them. This yellow one here saying, "It's easy to say that I use math every day, but during this internship, I was able to, really think about it in the activities that I do outside of class." And then also the students starting to find themes across their topics was really wonderful for us to see, that they've gotten to gain that skill of synthesizing information and identifying themes. Those are all wonderful qualitative research and wonderful being able to do a thematic analysis across their own content across the weeks, and then being able to engage in that across different student presentations as well is really awesome that they were able to start seeing those connections. And it was wonderful for us to hear that they felt like they gained that skill from this experience. But there's so much we can hear about the students' experiences, but I would love to hear a little bit more about it from them themselves. So I'm going to go ahead and pass along to our student presenters who are going to share their final projects, which, as a reminder, are a synthesis of their learnings across the weeks. And they'll share a little bit more about their experiences as well. And they'll leave a little bit of room after each of their presentations for questions, but we'll also leave some time at the end for larger questions as well. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and unshare and pass along to Lois.
Hello, everyone. Just a reminder, I'm Lois Baker from Charleston High School. You might hear a little bit of a bell go off. I'm going into my 5th hour class, but that's okay. Alrighty, as I get sharing this up here, do you guys see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So when she was talking about having the scheduling issues, I was the scheduling issue. But so my first topic is about where quite do we find math? So I had a very large range of ideas for my topics that I covered over the 4 journals that I had. Everything from music to ancient architecture, as well as more abstract concepts like symmetry and more I don't know, universal concepts like the stock market are things that I covered in a lot of my journals. And then knowing where you can apply like math to the real world really helps learners understand why learning math skills are important. So my big thing that I had with my final is the main issue with math education and education in general, specifically in my area, in my high school, which is like just a pretty common high school, is motivation to learn. A lot of times you find students asking, well, I'm never going to learn, I'm never going to need this. Why do I need to learn this? This is boring and repetitive, and nothing actually feels like it's a value that I'm learning. And so I think that by using math badges and tying into real world concepts, it really helps students have an overall purpose for what they're learning. And I think that that is a very big, important thing when it comes to math education. So for my first topic, I believe I used badges 100D and 100E. So these are both representations to illustrate something important about proportional relationships, choosing numbers, variables, and equations. So this is where I talked about the stock market. I tied the stock market into this one. So another important thing with the stock market is teaching students their own financial responsibility and consequences for their math. You know, everyone knows about the stock market crash, things like that. So seeing that things like analyzing data and such online with finances, and even without finances, other statistics of people and all sorts of things are really, really important because things have real life consequences. So projects where students would have to choose to invest a certain amount of money in the stock market would be an optional project that you could do. And also it opens up a lot of opportunities because some students might find finance and stock market very interesting. And finance is a lot of business jobs and other things that students might have an interest in pursuing outside of school. Then I have badge 102A, engaging in the modeling cycle. So, oh, excuse the bell. Engaging in the modeling cycle. So I typically think of science when I think of this one. However, while I was doing my music journal, I came across one on ancient architecture with ancient Egyptian pyramids as well as Roman theaters. And so determining the problem, I thought that we could also incorporate hands-on learning since I focused on a little bit more like architecture. So determining the problem is building the pyramid, choosing your strategy, like building it out of blocks, finding the values, like measuring the values of your pyramid, measuring the length this way, and then the bottom as well for using the Pythagorean theorem to find the hypotenuse, and then doing things like a right triangle. So then when it says like check values check that the values make sense, and revise as necessary. Students would be able to create their own pyramid with no really prior knowledge, just like the ancient Egyptians might have. So I think that that would be something really important. And I know that hands-on learning is a very thing that a lot of times in math we kind of don't always include. Sometimes in elementary education, yes, but I feel as we go to high school, there's a lot of times that we don't get a lot of hands-on learning. And so I think that that is a really important skill for some people as well. Then we have a bunch of badges here, and they all pertain to collecting data, comparing data, and analyzing the data that you collect. So me personally, when I did my music journal, my first journal, I thought a lot about the way that you think about music and the way that you think about math and how you learn them. And I conducted my own statistics by asking my fellow music students at the high school what they believed that their math competency was, so how they thought that they were learning in their math class. And by doing that, I used that data to try to prove the point that sometimes music students and math students excel at the same things, or that music students could benefit in their math classes from their musical skills. So students could have a project where they could choose a question and collect data and statistics on their fellow classmates about it, and then use that data to support a point of an opinion, which I think is also incredibly important to get to know our peers and to also know how to collect and analyze and show data, because that is another big part of a lot of jobs. So for my final thoughts, applying math to real life helps students make connections and understand abstract concepts more easily. So sometimes bringing up a physical example of math, whether it's in the grocery store or wherever you need to, can sometimes help students who are having competency problems, learn concepts that might be kind of difficult for them to digest, especially if it's something that you typically only see on paper. Sometimes being able to connect it to something that you've already experienced will definitely help with the educational process. And then giving realistic examples of math helps motivate students to learn mathematical concepts because they know it will serve a purpose when they graduate. Again, with the motivation of students constantly feeling like they don't need what they're learning, when honestly, I think that math is a place where you can build a lot of very important analysis skills, comparing skills. It's a very, very important part of our education. And so I would love to see more students be more motivated into learning what they're doing in math and engaging in math classes more with more interesting topics that they want to learn and that help them learn. So that is the end of my presentation. Does anyone have any questions, any thoughts, anything that they'd like to share?
I have a question. Thank you, Lois, very much for sharing. I am very interested in, were you able to were you or did you share with students outside of this program, other students in your high school in math classes, to help them start being able to see real life connections to math? Or how do you think this could be integrated more with all students or every student in different courses?
So I did talk to some of my friends and other students about sometimes some real life examples. I think it particularly helps me in like chemistry class when I'm explaining things. Excuse the bell, sorry. But particularly when explaining things to other students, I do find it a lot easier if you bring up a real life example that they can make the connection to an experience that they've had. And I think that that does help. I think that incorporating real life skills into math education mostly starts with curriculum, and it starts with curriculum writing. I feel like the structure of a lot of math classes is, do 10 worksheets and then we're just going to have a test. And I find that a lot in like even my own math classes, is it's just worksheets on worksheets on worksheets. I think that sometimes integrating hands-on projects or projects with statistics and stuff can make a class a lot more interesting. So I really think it just starts with the teacher and how they choose to teach, and then like what curriculum they choose to give to their students as well. But it's always up for improvement, and every curriculum changes every year. So it's always possible that you can include more real life concepts, even just as you teach. So as you're explaining a new concept, maybe that is something that you keep in mind or something like that. But yeah, it's always able to be integrated. Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Lois, I wonder, there were some questions in the chat about, how your teacher recommended you, or how that happened that you got this experience. I wonder, I know we've kind of responded in there, but an RF2, when you share, would be curious about what did that look like to get recommended for the experience, and how did you do that?
Here we go. So my school is block schedule. So I have Mr. Hudson my 8th hour, and I am in a band. I'm in band, so I could not take honors geometry with the typical teacher. So I am me and just three other students were recommended from Charleston High School because we were in like the honors portion of Mr. Hudson's class. I think that he just thought that this would be a really good experience for us. So all 4 of us decided to do it. And I'm really excited because we all did. I'm sorry, what was the second part of that question? I'm reading through the chat now.
No, I think you answered it. People were curious
right.
how you were recommended and what that process looked like. So appreciate that.
Thank you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. There we go. Are there any more questions, or is that all? Because we still have Arav.
What level math course are you currently taking?
So my high school, I took algebra 1 my freshman year, honors algebra 1, and then I'm currently enrolled in honors geometry 2. 2 of my fellow classmates are enrolled in honors geometry and honors algebra 2, so they have a little bit more knowledge than I do. So I just have like basic algebra and then geometry.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Lois, and thank you to all of y'all that asked questions, both aloud and in the chat. We're hoping to have more time for questions at the end as well, but I'm going to go ahead and pass along to Arav to take the screen.
Yeah. Hello, my name is my name is Arav Shah. I know I introduced myself earlier, but wait, let me just. Can you see my screen?
It's loading. There we go.
Okay. So my presentation is a little bit more like, I guess, broad. So I didn't really go into any of my individual journals. So if you guys have any questions about that at the end, you can let me know. But in my final presentation was kind of looking at math beyond the classroom and how it can be applied in various ways. And so my main takeaway from the internship was that math classes, rather than teaching, like, they're meant to teach a way of thinking rather than a set of definitive steps to get to a set answer. They're meant to teach you how to think. And so looking at this, I kind of saw 6 key insights and 6 key uses of math throughout my experience and throughout writing my journals and doing all this research. And so, and I went more in depth into each of them. So starting off with practical applications, 2 of my journals were computer science related. One was more hardware related, one was more software related. And so just looking at the world around us, there's just so many practical applications of math that go far beyond the classroom. Like, for example, your computer or your smartphone is constantly running hundreds and millions of calculations. And even like the room you're in right now, and I'm sure there's plenty of complex geometry used to create the room. And so just in general, there's so many practical applications. And here I have some examples like computing with binary algorithms in social media platforms and just so much more. And so I think that can really help draw students in, just showing them that math isn't just something they can do in the classroom. It can really extend to any field, anywhere you go. Something else I found really interesting was the logical reasoning skills developed from math, because math really helps develop these, like, if you view math like a puzzle, you really look at patterns and like test different ways of approaching the problem in order to kind of gain a framework for approaching certain types of problems. And then over time, as you do more problems, you'll identify more patterns, you'll analyze more relationships, and you'll become stronger and stronger in that field. And if you do it over and over again, if you repeat it, then you'll gain logical reasoning skills. And that's also really valuable in really any field, because you need to be able to think well in any field. And that really ties back to what I said before about a way of thinking rather than a set of definitive steps. And I also looked at math and chess. And so that was like kind of my other two journals. And so this kind of tied in with that, where the logical reasoning skills really play a role in chess. And I've seen both my math skill and my chess skill like increase together, and it's pretty fascinating. And adding on to that, there's also problem solving, which is, I think, similar logical thinking. But I looked at problem solving more of the process of getting to the problem versus actually getting the right answer, because finding a problem's like core elements and exploring different strategies and ways to attack the problem is really valuable. Like, I know I've done some competition math. And so in competition math, usually the underlying math concepts aren't very difficult. But what the difficult part is reading the problem, understanding the problem, and then knowing what approach to use. Because a lot of the problems, you can't just brute force them. You need to know the strategy, you need to know the technique to approach the problem, break it down to simpler steps, and then tackle it. And that'll really help you get the answer faster, more efficiently, and most of the time more correctly. And so that's a really valuable skill that can, again, be applied to any field, anywhere you want to go. And so, and then math is typically seen as a rigid field where, like, oh, you just do a set of steps, you get to the right answer, and then you're done. But there's a lot of creativity and innovation that can also play a part, and it kind of goes with problem solving, where thinking outside of the box can really help you excel in math. You can if you're open to new ideas and you keep on pushing through, then you'll really be able to gain, and really be able to take this math and apply it in different ways, the same math concepts, so you can apply them in different ways to different problems. And it can really be fascinating if you really apply your creativity to these problems. And that also is really helpful in competition math. Because I know coming into competition math, I wasn't very good at it because I hadn't really been exposed to this kind of because usually it was just the teacher gives you one type of problem on a test, you do that type of problem, you see the same problem over and over again, just with different numbers, and you keep on doing that. But looking at these competition math problems, where sometimes they're word problems or just difficult problems that you really have to think about how to approach creatively. And I think that really helps shape you and really helps change your view on math as a whole. And this one's more abstract, I guess, but math helps build a growth mindset, where a lot of the times it can be a struggle to learn a new concept. But if you persevere and use these challenges not as setbacks, but as stepping stones, you can persevere and like get a willingness to learn from mistakes. And so I'm sure most people here have encountered growth mindsets versus fixed mindsets, but essentially a growth mindset allows you to grow from your mistakes, and a fixed mindset assumes that you've just hit your limit and you can't learn any further. And again, having a growth mindset is important in any field, which is just a trend I've seen throughout all of this math. And this last one, it ties in a math badge, where math is also just useful in everyday society and helping understand society. And we live in a very data-driven world where not only do we need data analysis skills to understand society, but also to argue points and debate and prove our points. And so one of the math badges I found really interesting was math badge M212 or I guess M212, and it was about linear regression and R squared values and analyzing graphs and plotting and just looking at data and trying and really understanding that data. And that can help even if you're going to some kind of like public policy job. It can really help. So I think just in general, this has shown how math can range from any field. It doesn't just have to be like a computation-based field. And this, I saw the statistic on USCO, over 617 million children and adolescents are not receiving minimum proficiency levels in mathematics. And so I think IMBY is just a really like great way to kind of help provide accessibility to these students who really need it. The students who may not have as much of a math background or who may not have been fortunate enough to attend high-level math classes, this could really help them excel in their math courses. And so just final conclusions. Again, I think like I just keep on tying it back to that first statement, where math is meant to teach you a way of thinking, not a way of not a rigid set of steps. And so I think that's just where I found the importance in math, and that's where this internship really changed my view. And I think and I think the Illinois Math Badging Initiative is a really good way, especially with their hands-on learning and all the other techniques they've employed, to really help push this, to help students learn that math can be applied, and just to help students find value in math. And just, I guess, my reflection on the internship as a whole is I learned a lot of valuable skills. I wrote journals every week. I learned how to communicate in those 5-minute presentations. I created a final paper, and just throughout the internship, I created a lot of, like, not only learned a lot of skills, but created things that I can now demonstrate to other people that I have proficiency in those skills. And so, yeah, I'm if you want to contact me, if you think of a question later, my email is ashot@imsa.edu, and yeah, let me know if you guys have any questions.
Thanks so much, Ara, for your presentation. I wonder if you and I spoke just a little bit earlier about your experience with which this is connected to mastery-based learning, and would love to hear your thoughts about how that fits here, and also how that's been for you.
Yeah, so I think mastery-based learning kind of also plays into, like, I guess, the greater view of IMB, like, because mastery-based learning, I guess, at least how I've experienced it, kind of falls on the belief that you can retake and you can keep on trying at concepts until you can achieve. I feel like that kind of falls into math badges. And I've gone to 2 different schools. And so I go to IMSA now, but I went to a different school before. And so, like, I've seen mastery-based learning implemented in 2 different ways. And so I think it's definitely difficult to find the balance between being not, because having retakes is definitely useful, but I think sometimes it can be stretched to the point where students are just retaking for the sake of retaking rather than actually trying to learn the concepts. And so I think at least in my old school, my experience wasn't that great with mastery-based learning, because I think it really overemphasized the retake part rather than the learning part. But I think that also killed the motivation of a lot of students, because now they didn't have to try and learn to excel. They could just retake over and over again until they eventually got it. But I think now, at like IMSA, I think it's implemented well, where you're encouraged to learn before you can retake again. And I have some classes, like in chemistry, I know we have mastery-based. It's mostly teacher dependent here, whether they want it mastery-based or not. But I know in, like, chemistry, you have to, like, show proof that you've looked into this concept and learned further before you get another opportunity to retake. And so I think just implementing that, I think mastery-based learning can be really valuable, but and I think implementing it and thinking about implementing it properly is where it balances challenge and success is really helpful.
I just have a quick question. I really like your statement around math class teaches us how to think. It's a way of thinking. Can you elaborate, like, where did that pivotal, like, idea come in place from this internship?
Yeah, so I think just as I did my research, I kind of realized, like, okay, like, I kind of started with, I knew math was applied, but I didn't really think about it that much. Like, okay, I just go to class, I do a math, I leave, right? I mean, I know math is useful in this, like, broader context, but I haven't really thought about it as much. But this internship really helped me kind of look into different ways math is used and kind of learn about this. And then I guess it wasn't really a point. It wasn't really like a pivotal point. It was more of just a general understanding throughout the internship, where as I did more research, as I wrote more journals, as I wrote my final paper, as I made this presentation, I kind of just, like, began to realize, like, hey, not only is this applicable, and not only is math itself applicable in so many ways, but also the skills that you can learn from math are applicable in so many ways. If there's no more questions, I can stop this screen share. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Arav. And actually, something we had an expo a couple weeks ago, actually, where all of the students presented their final insights. And I actually, from that time, had a quote from Arav written down that math is a way of thinking, not a set of steps. I just thought it was so brilliant that, like, I had written it down a couple weeks ago, and I wrote it down again today. Just keep on, permanently remembering that, because it's such a good way to sum up our thoughts around this. And something that comes up in Lois's presentation as well is that, Lois presented how she really feels like people can feel a greater connection to math through this type of thinking, and that it brings interest to the classroom. It helps students, and for lack of a better word, from Dorletta's comment in the chat, it helps students that are at risk of disengaging with math. And so I kind of wanted to open up now for, maybe a twofold conversation. One, Dorletta asked this question of how this could be used to target students who are at risk of disengaging in math to continue on higher level math courses. And so I posed that thought to our wonderful students. They've already, somewhat touched on it, but I want to give them the opportunity to share more on that idea if they would like to.
Just to like double check on the question, it's how it can be used to target students who might be struggling, or okay. So I think that like math badging in general, I think the goal is to, I think at least how I envision it would be to help excelling students push themselves further, and I think it would help like students who are struggling catch up, because at least right now in the typical class, the class is usually catered to those who are struggling, because the teachers need to get them up to par. Well, not up to par, but like they need to get them get them knowing the material before they can help the other students who are already excelling go further. And so I feel like the excelling students kind of lose priority there. And I think that math badging can really help students kind of self-study and kind of see reward for that self-studying, because as someone who's like self-studied before, there's not really a reward to it, except for the class gets easier when you move into further classes. But I think math badging, especially if you can get credit for it, I think that would be really helpful in kind of excelling the students who are already excelling. And I think, as the question was, it can also help the students who are struggling meet all the requirements that they need to meet. And I don't know if Lois wants to comment further.
Yeah, I'll definitely comment. So a lot like what Arav said, my school next year it already has started implementing concepts of CBE, which is, I believe it's curriculum based. No, it's competency based education. I got it. My whole school is going competency based next year. And so they're trying to combat the problem that Arav is talking about the very big gap between students who are excelling and students who are struggling. So I really think that a lot of tools like this could definitely help students that are studying or students that are struggling, because a lot of students that are struggling mostly are probably struggling with stuff outside of school as well. Having real life concepts and being able to have things explained to them in a more grounded, less abstract way could definitely be helpful with furthering their competency and helping them as well. I'm hoping that happens in my high school.
Awesome. Thank you so much for those insights and for both of y'all's incredible presentations. Earlier, I said that was going to be a twofold question, because I was going to prompt that one and prompt the rest of the room to ask any other questions they would like to for the students or for us as an EdSystems team about the structure of this micro-internship and what we're hoping to gain out of it, anything of the sort. So I'll just open up the room for the rest of the time for questions. Please feel free to speak aloud.
So it seems like teachers opted into participating at the targeted schools, or was it there's one teacher who is going to be supervising, quote unquote, the students who are doing these badges? Can you give me a little bit of an idea of how, like practically at the school, how it's set up and how it works?
I can definitely answer too. Once one of you guys go for like, I guess, more general overview, I can talk about how it's implemented in my school.
Yeah, I was going to open this up, Ginger.
So sure. The way that the badges have been implemented varies across. We have 6 pilot sites and are trying to understand with the pilot sites what might be the best ways that it works and that it doesn't. We've got a variety of use cases. One of them is at Lois's school, where they are using badges to validate the learning that happens offsite in a geometry and construction course. But we have some other use cases as well. So for example, We have a use case where students who might be missing a piece of, for example, they weren't able to get through Algebra 1, we know that's a big hurdle. And rather than sending them back again through the same Algebra 1 class that didn't serve them the first time, looking to figure out what exactly are the targeted places that those students are struggling, and then letting them earn a badge that really targets the places that they're struggling and also allows them to try to approach the math in a different way than just sitting through the class again. And we have some other use cases. One of our pilot sites is looking into integrating badges into an integrated computer science and math course. We have another one that's using badges to validate the math that happens across an integrated STEM series that's got 4 courses that are integrated. So lots of different use cases, and this is part of the EdSystems innovation work, and we're at a point now where it really is still the innovation space, and we're trying to learn as much as we can from all of these, I have to say, incredible teachers and district personnel who have been helping with this. It's just been such a learning experience along the way, and we're excited to be with them. But I guess that's my way of saying we don't know yet all of the exact right things, but we think we're on to some really great potential. Hope that's helpful.
Can I ask, what would be the next steps then for the ed system and the math badges? What are you looking to do expanding wise?
Yeah, it's a great question. We are looking to, we would love to engage with some additional pilot sites if that's something that you're interested in. Also looking into the pilot sites where we are already engaged and looking to learn from them more as they integrate the badges more deeply into their curriculum. Would love to have another side conversation too if you want to dig in deeper and get further into the weeds. Just reach out.
For those sites, for example, where students had failed algebra, and then you use badging for those high areas of need, did they then go back and retest to, like their regular testing, or how did they validate the learning? Was there a validation outside of the badging to show what their competency was now for Algebra 1 and the areas that they really failed previously?
They're still figuring out exactly what it needs to look like. So I would say that they're still figuring it out.
Both for Lois and Ara, so this was math focused, right? But would love maybe for you all, I think you both spoke to the essential skills that you gained through this process, and would love for you all, what do you think is the top one that you feel like most improved or you most had to grapple with as part of this micro-internship?
I think the biggest skill that I gained was definitely like shifting my mindset to how I thought about math. I very much got stuck into the routine that I've kind of talked about of just do this worksheet, keep doing your worksheets, and then eventually you'll have a test. And I really enjoyed that. I got to pull in different concepts from outside of the classroom, and I got to make math a lot more interesting. I found myself talking to my family about what I was journaling about, and they were like, I don't want to listen to that. But I was able to find a lot more interest in what I was doing, and I also was able to find a lot more purpose in what I was learning once I started connecting it to real life. And I think that that's something that a lot of other students should also experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think Lois said it perfectly. And I mean, I think just changing my mindset to how I view math and breaking out of that routine would be was kind of the biggest hurdle, and also I think the biggest takeaway from the internship.
Awesome. Well, so happy to hear that y'all got a lot out of it. We get a lot out of getting to share space with you and getting to hear your insights. So we really appreciate you both so much, Lois and Arav, and it's been so much fun getting to work with you. I want to thank all of you for being here today and joining us for this session. We look forward to hearing from you all in the future. Please contact us with any questions. If you have any, we'll be sending out the presentations and the recording and a compilation of all of these resources. And we hope to continue to see you at future IWIN sessions. But hope you all have a wonderful rest of your Monday and take care.